The council chamber was filled with fear. Representatives from 17 different species sat around the massive circular table, their faces showing the same emotion regardless of how many eyes or limbs they had. Fear was universal. Admiral stood at the center, his insect-like body clicking nervously. His 4 eyes scanned the room as he spoke. 3 more colonies have fallen. The Devourer horde consumed everything. 12 billion lives gone in 72 hours. A reptilian scientist named raised her clawed hand. Our weapons don't work. Every time we adapt, they adapt faster. It's like fighting an ocean. We destroy one wave and 10 more come behind it. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Galactic Coalition had existed for 300 years. They had known peace, prosperity, and progress. Now, in just 6 weeks, they faced extinction. There must be something, a delegate whispered. Some weapon, some strategy we haven't tried. Shook her head slowly. She pulled up an old data file on the holographic display. Strange symbols appeared, along with images of a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. I've been researching ancient records. There are stories, very old stories, about a species from the Orion Arm. They called themselves humans. Santeni twitched in annoyance. Myths and legends won't save us. We need real solutions. Listen, insisted. 600 years ago, this species disappeared. Records say their sun went unstable and destroyed their world. But before that, they were known for something unusual. They survived things that should have killed them. Planetary disasters, wars, diseases. They had a saying, humanity always finds a way. They're extinct, said flatly, like we will be if we waste time on fairy tales. At that moment, alarms screamed through the council chamber. A communications officer rushed in, his face pale. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the edge of Coalition space, from coordinates that show nothing but empty void. Put it through, commanded. Static filled the room, then a voice came through. It was strange, speaking in a language the translators struggled with at first. Then the words became clear, spoken in a rough, determined tone. This is Commander of the Terran Fleet. We received your distress signals. Humanity is coming. Hold your positions. We'll be there soon. The transmission ended. The council chamber exploded into shocked voices. Eyes widened. Impossible. The humans are dead. This must be a trick. Was already pulling up more data, her claws moving rapidly across the controls. The transmission signature is authentic. It matches the old Earth frequencies. Admiral, what if they're not dead? What if they survived? Before could respond, space itself seemed to tear open near Prime, the besieged coalition world closest to the Horde's advance. 37 ships dropped out of quantum space, appearing on every scanner in the sector. The coalition observers couldn't believe what they were seeing. The ships were wrong, all wrong. They looked like they had been built from scrap and held together with determination. Weapons stuck out at odd angles. Hull plating was mismatched, clearly taken from different ship types. Energy signatures spiked in ways that should have torn the vessels apart. They're going to explode, a coalition engineer gasped. Those power levels are beyond critical. But the ships didn't explode. They moved with purpose, forming a defensive line between the Horde and Prime. The lead vessel, larger than the others but just as patchwork, broadcast a message. This is Commander. We're here to help. Sending docking coordinates for diplomatic meeting. Found himself being shuttled to the human flagship within the hour. The ship was called the Defiant, and it lived up to its name. Every surface showed signs of repair and modification. The crew moved with efficient grace, their faces hard but not cruel. They looked like people who had survived terrible things and learned to keep going anyway. Commander met him in a stark conference room. She was a human female, her face weathered with scars and experience. One arm was clearly cybernetic, the metal showing no attempt to hide what it was. Her eyes were dark and sharp, missing nothing. "Admiral," she said, her voice the same one from the transmission. "Thank you for meeting with us." "Who are you?" demanded. "The humans are supposed to be extinct, dead for 6 centuries." Smiled, but there was no humor in it. "We're very much alive. And you're welcome, by the way. We just traveled 3 months at speeds that should have killed us to answer your distress call." "But the records say—" "The records are wrong," interrupted. "Earth wasn't destroyed. We made it look that way. 600 years ago, we detected something hunting us across the galaxy, something old and hungry. So we did what humans do best. We ran, we hid, and we survived. We triggered a solar event that made it look like our sun wiped us out. Then we went dark, completely silent, hiding in our own system. Sat down heavily. For 600 years. For 600 years, confirmed. We rebuilt everything from scratch. We learned to live with less. We learned to fight when everything was broken. We learned that survival isn't pretty, but it's better than the alternative. Why reveal yourselves now?" His expression softened slightly. "Because we heard your call, because we know what it's like to face extinction, and because staying hidden while others die isn't survival, it's just slow death by cowardice." She pulled up a holographic display showing the Horde's advance. "We've been monitoring you for the past century. We know about the Devourer Horde. We know your weapons don't work, and we think we know why. You have a solution." Leaned forward, hope and skepticism warring in his voice. "Not a solution," said, "but we have experience. 600 years of fighting with broken ships, limited resources, and the knowledge that one mistake means extinction. We've learned to make desperation into a weapon. We've learned to fight when we've already lost." She looked directly at. "Your problem is that you're trying to beat them with superior technology and tactics. You're fighting like people who expect to win. We can teach you to fight like people who accepted they might die and decided to make it count anyway." Felt a chill run through his body. This wasn't comfort or reassurance. This was something darker and more dangerous. This was hope forged from desperation. "What do you need from us?" he asked quietly. Smile returned, sharp as a blade. "Trust, time, and the willingness to learn that sometimes the only way to survive is to stop being afraid of what you might lose." Outside the ship, the Horde was gathering for another attack. Inside, humanity had finally stepped back into the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. The Coalition commanders gathered in the war room aboard's flagship. They stared at the humans with open curiosity and hidden fear. Had brought 4 of her officers with her, and each one looked like they had survived their own personal war. Captain was young for a ship commander, but his eyes were old. He carried himself with the relaxed confidence of someone who had faced death so many times it became boring. Next to him stood the human diplomat, whose soft voice somehow commanded more attention than shouting ever could. Their chief engineer kept tapping on a data pad, his fingers moving constantly. And their medical officer watched everyone with the careful gaze of someone trained to spot injuries before they became fatal. "We've prepared tactical simulations," began. "If we could see your combat capabilities." "No simulations," interrupted. "The Horde is 3 hours from Prime. We'll show you in real combat." A Coalition admiral sputtered. "That's insane. You just arrived. You don't know our formations, our communication protocols." "Don't need them," said simply. "Just stay out of our way and watch. You'll learn more from seeing us fight than from any simulation." Nodded. He's right. Words won't convince you, but actions will. 3 hours later, the Horde arrived. Their bioships blotted out the stars, thousands of writhing organic vessels that pulsed with stolen life. They moved like a swarm, coordinated and hungry. The Coalition fleet formed defensive lines, weapons ready, following centuries of tactical doctrine. The human ships did something different. They charged forward. "What are they doing?" shouted. "They're breaking formation." Watched the scanners, her scientific mind racing. "They're accelerating beyond safe limits. Those speeds will tear their ships apart." Then why started, but the answer became clear seconds later. The human ships slammed into the Horde formation like bullets, shields blazing. But unlike the Coalition's careful energy management, the humans ran their shields at maximum power, burning through energy reserves at impossible rates. They didn't care about sustainability. They cared about impact. His voice came through the communication channel, calm despite the chaos. Wolf pack formation. Target the big ones. Remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to make them regret showing up. His fighter squadron broke into smaller groups, each one targeting a Horde capital ship. The Coalition watched in horror as the human fighters deliberately let their shields fail, allowing Horde parasites to latch onto their hulls. It looked like suicide. Then's voice came again. Now. Every infected human ship detonated antimatter charges. Not in their engines or weapon systems, but right on their hulls where the Horde parasites had attached. The explosions were massive, tearing through the Horde ships that had gotten too close, thinking they had easy prey. 3 human fighters were destroyed completely, but 20 Horde capital ships exploded in chain reactions. The communication channel was silent except for some matter-of-fact voice. Reformed Wolf Pack, 9 ships remaining, ready for second run. You sacrificed your pilots, a Coalition captain screamed. Negative, replied. Check your scanners. Escape pods launched 2 seconds before detonation. We lost ships, not people. Ships can be rebuilt. Checked, it was true. The human pilots had ejected at the last possible second, their pods now scattered across the battlefield, transmitting calmly for pickup. The Horde regrouped, adapting to the new threat. They formed formations, trying to prevent the suicide charges. That's when the rest of the human fleet opened fire. Their weapons were strange, mismatched, clearly cobbled together from different technologies. But they all had one thing in common. They hit hard. The humans didn't care about elegant targeting solutions or efficient energy use. They overloaded every shot, burning out weapon systems after a few volleys, but each hit struck with devastating force. His voice joined the channel. Coalition fleet, we're sending you modification packages. Install them on your weapons. It'll void your warranties and probably give your engineers nightmares, but you'll hit 3 times harder. We can't modify our systems in the middle of combat. An engineer protested. Sure you can, said cheerfully. We do it all the time. Just override the safety protocols and route power from life support. You can breathe later. Right now, you need to shoot. His flagship, the Defiant, took a direct hit from a Horde biobeam. Alarms screamed as hull breaches opened on 3 decks. His voice came through, steady and calm. Medical teams to decks 7, 8, and 9. We've got wounded. Keep fighting, people. We've survived worse. And incredibly, they had. The Defiant didn't retreat for repairs. It kept firing, kept moving, kept fighting even as atmosphere vented from its wounds. The human crew sealed bulkheads, rerouted power, and adapted on the fly. They made broken look functional. Transport was supposed to be safe in the back lines, but she watched the battle with calculating eyes. She opened a channel too. Admiral, your ships are fighting to preserve themselves. That's the problem. You need to fight to destroy the enemy, even if it costs you everything. That's barbaric, said, but his voice wavered. That's survival, corrected gently. Civilization is beautiful, Admiral. We love it, we want it. But sometimes, to preserve civilization, you have to be willing to do uncivilized things. The Horde doesn't care about your ideals. They only understand one thing: cost. Make yourself too expensive to eat. The battle raged for 2 hours. The Coalition forces fought traditionally, taking careful shots, maintaining formations, preserving their vessels. They destroyed Horde ships, but slowly, methodically. The human fleet fought like cornered animals. They broke every rule, violated every safety protocol, and made every shot count even if it meant damaging their own systems. They lost 12 more ships, but the Horde losses were catastrophic. When the Horde finally retreated, the battlefield was full of debris. The Coalition had lost 7 ships, the humans had lost 15, but the Horde had lost over 200 vessels. Looked at the casualty reports in disbelief. You lost nearly half your fleet. Standing on the damaged bridge of the Defiant, wiped blood from a cut on her forehead. Yes, and we killed 40 times our number. That's called a winning exchange rate. But your ships can be repaired, will be repaired. We've rebuilt from worse. His voice was firm. Admiral, you're thinking like someone who can afford to lose slowly. You can't. The Horde will grind you down over years until nothing's left. We're teaching you to fight like someone who might die tomorrow so you can survive to see next year. Limped onto the bridge, his flight suit torn but his expression satisfied. We made them pay. They'll think twice before hitting prime again. Who had watched the entire battle from the safety of the command ship, approached. Your methods work, but they're terrifying. Nodded, yes, war is terrifying. We just stopped pretending otherwise about 600 years ago. She looked at the Coalition officers. Now comes the hard part. We need to teach the rest of your fleet to fight like us. Are you ready to learn? Looked at his fellow commanders. He saw fear in their eyes, but also something new. Hope. Desperate, sharp-edged hope. Teach us, he said. The training began the next day, and it was nothing like what the Coalition forces expected. Stood in front of 200 Coalition pilots, his arms crossed. Forget everything you learned in your academies. Those tactics work when you have superior numbers and technology. You don't. So we're going to teach you to fly like you're already dead. A young Coalition pilot raised a tentacle. What does that mean? It means, said, walking closer, that the moment you stop being afraid of dying, you become very dangerous. Your fear makes you hesitate. Hesitation gets you killed. Acceptance makes you free. He pulled up a holographic display showing a human fighter performing impossible maneuvers. The ship twisted, spun, and dove in ways that should have torn it apart or knocked the pilot unconscious from the G-forces. This is called the broken wing maneuver. You deliberately damage your own ship's stabilizers to create unpredictable movement. The enemy can't hit what they can't predict. That's insane, the young pilot whispered. Yes, agreed. And it works. Let me tell you a secret I throw up before every mission. My hands shake. I'm terrified every single time I climb into my fighter, but I fly anyway because fear is just information. It tells me the stakes are high. It doesn't tell me to quit. The training continued. Pushed them hard, making them fly damaged simulators, forcing them to complete missions with failing systems. Most of them crashed in the simulations. Some cried. But slowly, they began to understand. Victory wasn't about having perfect conditions. It was about refusing to give up when everything went wrong. Across the station, ran engineering workshops that horrified Coalition technicians. He stood in front of a pristine Coalition warship and pulled up its technical specifications. Beautiful ship, he said. Efficient, elegant, follows every safety regulation. He smiled. Which means it's built for peacetime. Let's fix that. Over the next week, taught them modifications that violated every engineering principle they knew. Overclocking weapons beyond safe limits. Rerouting power from non-essential systems like comfort controls and recreational facilities. Creating emergency protocols that could turn any ship system into a weapon. What if the reactor goes critical? An engineer asked nervously. Then you've got about 8 minutes to ram the nearest Horde ship and take them with you, said cheerfully. Look, I'm not saying you should blow up your ship. I'm saying you should know how to blow up your ship if that's the only option left. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. He showed them how to build weapons from debris, how to repair critical systems with parts from non-critical ones, how to keep a ship fighting even when it should be dead in space. Safety margins exist for a reason, a Coalition engineer argued. Yes, agreed. They exist so ships can operate at normal capacity for decades. But you don't need decades. You need to survive the next battle. So we cut the safety margins, push everything to the edge, and deal with the maintenance later. Because later only matters if you survive now. Medical training was perhaps the hardest for coalition personnel to accept. She gathered medical officers and taught them triage in ways that seemed cruel. "This soldier can be saved, but it'll take 20 minutes, she said, pointing to a holographic patient. "This one can be saved in 5 minutes. Who do you treat first?" "The first one," a coalition medic said. "The injury is worse." "Wrong," said firmly. "You save the second one. Get them back in the fight in 5 minutes. The first one stays wounded but alive until you have time. In human combat medicine, we don't optimize for best outcomes. We optimize for getting the most soldiers back into battle." "That's monstrous," someone whispered. His face softened. "No, it's practical, and it's the difference between losing a battle and losing a war. I don't like it either. Before Earth went dark, I would have been a researcher finding cures for diseases. But we didn't have that luxury. We had to become battlefield medics who could keep people alive with broken equipment and limited supplies. I hate it, but I'm good at it because the alternative is letting people die when I could save them." She taught them to ignore pain management in favor of function restoration, to use stimulants to keep wounded soldiers conscious and fighting, to prioritize mobility over comfort. It was harsh, brutal medicine, but it worked. Meanwhile, worked on the psychological aspect. She met with coalition leaders, trying to explain human thinking. "You keep asking us to slow down, to be less aggressive," she said to a council meeting. "You need to understand something about humanity. We don't have a death wish. We love life. We write poetry, create art, tell jokes, fall in love. We cherish every moment." "Then why do you throw your lives away so easily?" asked. "We don't," said softly. "We invest them. There's a difference. Every human who dies in battle makes a choice. They're buying time for others to live. They're purchasing survival with sacrifice. And we make sure those purchases count." She pulled up images from Earth, showing beautiful cities, green parks, happy families. "This is what we're fighting for. Not glory, not pride. We're fighting so that someday we can go back to just being people. Artists and parents and teachers and dreamers. But we can't be those things if we're dead. So we become warriors temporarily so we can survive to be human again." The coalition leaders began to understand. Humans weren't naturally violent. They were naturally stubborn. They refused to accept extinction, even when it seemed inevitable. Over 3 months, the training continued. Coalition forces learned to fight like humans. They learned to push their ships beyond safe limits. They learned to sacrifice tactically. They learned that survival sometimes meant doing terrible things for good reasons. The changes showed in small ways. Coalition pilots started taking risks. Engineers began creative modifications. Medical officers focused on speed over perfection. The fleet became rougher, less polished, but deadlier. Watched a coalition pilot execute a perfect broken wing maneuver and felt pride. Saw coalition engineers overclocking weapons without being told and grinned. Observed coalition medics performing battlefield triage efficiently and nodded approval. But knew this was just the beginning. The Horde was regrouping, adapting. Soon they would face a real test. Approached her one evening, finding her staring at a star map. "We're changing," he said, "becoming more like you." "No," corrected. "You're becoming more like yourselves. You were always capable of this. You just forgot because you didn't need it. Peace is wonderful, Admiral, but it makes you forget how to fight. We're just reminding you." "What if we can't go back?" asked quietly. "What if we win but we've become as brutal as the enemy?" Turned to him, her expression serious. "That's the real battle. Fighting the Horde is easy compared to fighting to keep your soul while you do terrible things. But that's why we remember. That's why we tell stories and write poetry and never forget what we're fighting for. The day you stop questioning if you've gone too far is the day you actually have. Nodded slowly. The horde is gathering again. Our scouts report massive fleet movements. I know, said. They're coming with everything they have. This won't be a raid. This will be an extinction attempt. Are we ready? Smiled fierce and determined. We're never ready, but we'll fight anyway. That's what humans do best. Worked alone in the engineering bay, his fingers flying across multiple screens. He hadn't slept in 3 days, surviving on stimulants and determination. The device in front of him was massive, a tangle of quantum processors and power conduits that pulsed with barely contained energy. Entered quietly, watching him work. Is it ready? Almost, said without looking up. The quantum cascade weapon is functional. It'll create a chain reaction that destroys all horde biomass within 3 sectors. Every organism, every ship, every parasite. Gone. And the cost? Finally looked at her, his eyes red from exhaustion. It needs 6 hours to charge. 6 hours at a fixed position, broadcasting an energy signature that the horde will detect immediately. They'll throw everything they have at us. Nodded slowly. She had expected this. How many ships do we need to hold the position? All of them, said bluntly. Every human vessel we have. I've already sent the recall order. 147 ships total, our entire fleet. And we'll need the coalition fleet too, or we won't last 6 hours. If we fail, humanity goes extinct, said quietly. For real this time. Smiled tiredly. We've been extinct before, didn't take. Besides, what's the alternative? Hide for another 600 years while the galaxy burns. That's not living. That's just waiting to die. Put a hand on his shoulder. Get some sleep. You'll need to operate the weapon personally when the time comes. I know, said. The neural interface requires a human operator. The quantum calculations are too complex for AI. It'll kill me, probably. The feedback will burn out my brain over those 6 hours. I'm okay with it, he interrupted. Really, I've run the numbers 1,000 times. There's no other way. And honestly, dying while saving the galaxy seems like a pretty good death. Better than old age anyway. Didn't know what to say. Was 24 years old. He should have had decades ahead of him. Instead, he was calmly accepting his death as necessary mathematics. Across the station was saying goodbye to his squadron. They sat in the pilot's lounge, sharing drinks and stories. Everyone knew what was coming. The recall order had brought every human ship in the galaxy to this single point in space. Do you think we'll make it? A young pilot asked. Considered the question seriously. Probably not. The numbers don't favor us, but we might, and that might is worth fighting for. I'm scared, the pilot admitted. Good, said. Fear means you understand what's at stake. The day we stop being scared is the day we start making stupid mistakes. He raised his glass. To tomorrow, whether we see it or not. The squadron raised their glasses together, a moment of quiet companionship before the storm. Prepared the medical bays, knowing they wouldn't be enough. She organized triage stations, trained volunteers, and set up field hospitals on every available ship. The casualties would be massive. Most of her patients wouldn't survive, but she would save who she could for as long as she could. A young medic found her checking supply inventories. Doctor, we don't have enough surgical supplies for a major battle. I know, said calmly. We never do. Improvise, use what you have. Remember your training, fast is better than perfect. Keep them alive now, worry about healing them later. The medic nodded, trying to hide her fear, gave her a gentle smile. You'll do fine, just remember why we're here. Every person you save is someone who gets to see tomorrow. That's worth any price. Met with the Coalition Council one final time. She stood before them, looking smaller than ever, but her voice carried steel. We're asking you to commit your entire fleet to a defensive position around the quantum weapon. If we fail, the Coalition fleet will be destroyed alongside ours. stood, and if we don't commit, if we hold back reserves, then we fail for certain, said simply. The Horde will overwhelm the human fleet in the first hour. The weapon won't complete its charge. The galaxy falls, slowly over years, but it falls. You're asking us to bet everything on a human weapon that might not work, a council member protested. No, corrected. We're asking you to bet everything on us, on humanity. We're the species that survived extinction once already. We're the ones who learned to fight when everything was broken. We're the ones who showed up when you needed us, even though we could have stayed hidden forever. She looked around the chamber. 6 months ago, you thought we were myths, dead legends from forgotten stories. Now you know we're real. We're stubborn, we're desperate, and we don't know how to quit. Is that enough? Maybe, maybe not. But it's all we have, and we're offering it freely. Spoke up from her seat. I believe in them. They've done everything they promised. Their tactics work. Their training works. They've given us hope when we had none. Closed his eyes, making a decision that would affect billions of lives. We commit our full fleet. If humanity is willing to risk extinction for us, the least we can do is stand beside them. The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, the combined fleet assembled around the quantum weapon platform. 147 human ships formed the inner defensive sphere. 300 coalition vessels formed the outer ring. In the center, the weapon charged slowly, its energy signature blazing across every sensor in the sector. The Horde would come. Everyone knew it. The only question was how many and how soon. Stood on the bridge of the Defiant, looking at the fleet spread out before her. She opened a channel to all ships, human and coalition alike. We gather here at the edge of everything, she began. In a few hours, the Horde will arrive. They'll come in numbers we've never seen. They'll come to destroy this weapon and consume us all. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The Coalition forgot about humanity 600 years ago. You thought we were dead. In a way, you were right. The humans who lived on Earth before the dark are dead. We're their descendants, forged in isolation and survival. We learned to fight in broken ships with limited resources. We learned to make every shot count, every sacrifice matter. Her voice strengthened. But we also learned something else. We learned that we're not alone in wanting to survive. Every species wants to live, to see their children grow, to build something lasting. The Horde threatens all of that. So today, we don't fight as humans or coalition. We fight as people who refuse to go quietly into extinction. She looked directly into the camera. To those who think we can't win, you're probably right. The odds are terrible. Most of us won't see tomorrow, but we're not fighting to survive the next 6 hours. We're fighting so that someone somewhere will survive the next 6 centuries. That's worth dying for. Across the fleet, crews straightened at their stations. Coalition and human personnel shared determined glances. Fear remained, but it was joined by something stronger: purpose. Checked his fighter's systems one last time. Connected himself to the quantum weapon, feeling the neural interface linked to his mind. Prepared her medical bay for the wounded who would soon arrive. Sat quietly in her quarters, writing letters to people who might never read them. The weapon's charge reached 15%, then 20%. The energy signature grew stronger, broadcasting their location to everything within range. And in the darkness between stars, the Horde detected the signal and began to move. 10,000 turned as one, accelerating toward the human position. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, all focused on a single point in space. The war for survival was about to begin. The Horde arrived like a wave of nightmares. 10,000 emerged from quantum space, so many that they blocked out the stars. Their organic hulls pulsed with stolen life, weapons growing from their flesh like tumors. They moved with single-minded purpose toward the defensive sphere around the quantum weapon. Watch them come, her face calm. All ships, hold your positions, make every shot count. We need 6 hours, let's buy them. The first hour was chaos. The horde crashed against the defensive lines like an ocean against rocks. Human and coalition ships fired continuously, their weapons glowing hot from constant use. Explosions lit up the darkness as vessels on both sides died. Led his fighter squadron in desperate maneuvers, weaving through the horde swarm. His ship took hit after hit, shields failing, hull cracking. Wolf Pack, stay tight. We're not trying to win. We're just trying to slow them down. A horde biobeam caught his wing, tearing through the metal. Alarm screamed in his cockpit, gritted his teeth and kept flying, using the damaged wing to create unpredictable movements. Broken wing maneuver, just like we practiced. His squadron followed, their damaged ships dancing through enemy fire. They were dying, but they were taking horde vessels with them. 3 fighters for every capital ship. It was terrible mathematics, but it was working. On the weapon platform, felt the quantum calculations burning through his mind. The neural interface was doing exactly what he knew it would, slowly killing him. His nose bled, his hands shook, but the weapon charge climbed steadily. 30%, 35. Your vital signs are critical, his voice came through. Disconnect and let someone else. No one else can do this, said, his voice strained. The calculations are too complex. I need to stay connected. He smiled weakly at the camera. Besides, we knew this would happen. I've already had 24 good years. That's more than many people get. The second hour brought heavier losses. The coalition's outer defensive ring collapsed under horde pressure. Ships fell back to the inner sphere, joining the human vessels in a formation. 70 ships were destroyed, their crews dying in fire and vacuum. But the weapon charge reached 50%. Worked frantically in the medical bay. Wounded arrived faster than she could treat them. She moved from patient to patient, making instant decisions. This one could wait. This one needed immediate surgery. This one was beyond saving, make them comfortable. A young coalition soldier grabbed her arm. Am I going to die? Looked at the massive wound across his chest. In peacetime, with proper facilities, he might survive. Here now he had minutes. She could lie, but that wasn't the human way. Yes, she said gently, but you bought us time. Your ship held the line for 20 extra minutes. Because of you, the weapon is still charging. You did your job perfectly. The soldier nodded, understanding. Then it was worth it. Held his hand as he died, adding his name to the list of people she would never forget. The third hour saw his fighter finally fail completely. Both engines were dead, weapons offline, life support flickering. He could eject, but the horde was too thick. His escape pod wouldn't make it. He looked at the massive horde flagship ahead of him, its biohull pulsing with the stolen lives of 1 billion consumed souls. His ship still had momentum, and the emergency reactor was critical. Command, this is Captain, I'm gone anyway. Might as well make it count. No, started, but he had already cut the connection. He aimed his dying ship at the flagship and triggered the reactor overload. The explosion was massive, tearing through the horde vessel's core. The flagship shuddered, its organic systems failing, and slowly broke apart. In his last seconds, thought of his mother on Earth, hoping she would understand why this mattered. Then there was only light. The weapon charge reached 70%. The fourth hour brought the worst fighting. Half the human fleet was destroyed. Coalition losses were similar. The defensive sphere was collapsing. Horde ships were getting through to the weapon platform. The Defiant took a direct hit that tore through its engine section, felt the deck shake beneath her feet. Damage report. Main engines offline. Hull breaches on 15 decks. We're dead in space, Commander. Looked at the weapon platform. 80% charged. They just needed more time. She made her decision. All hands abandon ship except essential crew. Route all remaining power to weapons. We're not dead until we stop shooting. The crew evacuated quickly, efficiently, but many refused to leave. They stayed at their stations, firing the Defiant's weapons even as the ship died around them. Watch from his own damaged vessel. Fall back, your ship is finished. Not yet, replied. We can still fight, we can still buy time. The Defiant became a fortress, stationary but deadly. Its weapons blazed continuously, creating a field of fire that no Horde ship could cross easily. Other damaged vessels followed its example, positioning themselves as static gun platforms. The weapon reached 90%. The fifth hour saw beginning to fail. The neural interface was burning out his brain, one synapse at a time. He couldn't feel his legs anymore. His vision was blurring. But the calculations continued, his dying mind still processing the quantum mathematics needed to make the weapon work. Watched his vital signs from her medical station, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't help him. No one could. He was buying their survival with his life, 1 second at a time. The weapon climbed to 95%. The sixth hour arrived with the fleet in ruins. Only 12 human ships still functioned. Coalition forces were similarly devastated. The Horde pressed closer, sensing victory. But the weapon reached 100%. Barely conscious, initiated the firing sequence. The platform erupted with light, quantum energy cascading outward in waves that human eyes couldn't properly see. It spread through the Horde fleet like fire through dry grass. The Horde bioships began to scream. Their organic systems destabilized, biomass breaking down at the molecular level. Ships that had consumed worlds died in seconds, their stolen lives finally released. The cascade spread across 3 sectors, destroying every Horde organism it touched. In his last moment of consciousness, saw the readings confirming success. The Horde was dying, all of them, every parasite, every ship, every fragment of their collective consciousness. He smiled and let go. The battlefield fell silent. 10,000 Horde ships became debris. The quantum cascade had worked perfectly. On the Defiant's ruined bridge, watched the scanners clear. The Horde was gone. They had won. She slumped in her chair, exhausted beyond words. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Around the sector, surviving ships began broadcasting confirmations. The Horde was destroyed. Humanity and the Coalition had paid a terrible price, but they had survived. 6 months later, a memorial stood where the battle had been fought. A crystal structure containing the names of every human and Coalition personnel who died. At its center, simple words, "They stood." Attended the dedication ceremony, her arm in a sling from injuries still healing. She looked its name on the memorial, remembering his tired smile. She looked its name, remembering his last brave act. Spoke at the ceremony, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd of humans and Coalition species. We lost 89% of the human fleet. The Coalition lost similar numbers, but we're here. We survived, and we'll remember. Earth was formally invited to join the Galactic Coalition. Humans began the slow work of rebuilding, both their fleet and their culture. They taught Coalition species about survival and resilience. In return, they learned to be more than warriors again. Years later, children would learn about the battle, how humanity stepped out of myth and into history, how they taught the galaxy that survival wasn't about superior strength, but about refusing to surrender. Older now but still sharp, would visit the memorial sometimes. She would stand before the names and remember the cost, remember the sacrifice, remember why it mattered. Was it worth it? Someone asked her once. Looked at the thriving galaxy around her, at the cooperation between species, at the children growing up in peace. Ask them, she said, pointing to the children playing nearby. They're alive because people chose to stand. Yes, it was worth it. Every name on that wall bought them a future. And in the quiet of space, where the battle had raged, the memorial crystal caught the starlight and held it, keeping watch over the galaxy humanity had refused to let die.